Welcome, my dear soul, to Lull and Lore, a quiet corner of the universe where stories shimmer like constellations, and every word is a thread gently pulling you into stillness. The sky is deep tonight, a velvet sea stitched with stars, each one twinkling like a memory too soft to hold. The moon hangs low, watching gently over the world, as if it knows it's time to rest now, time to dream. Here, the noise of the day fades, the worries hush, and in their place, a hush falls over your spirit. A calm descends, like the stardust on your thoughts. I am so glad you've joined me. This space was made just for you, to be seen, to be soothed, and to be slowly carried into sleep through the magic of story. So close your eyes if you wish, or just listen. Let the breath of the night hold you. Let your heartbeat sync with the rhythm of peace. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to do anything. Just let go. Be here. Be in the moment. And allow the story to wrap around you like a warm hug to a moonlight garden. The tale begins now. The Crown of Stillwater, a princess who chose herself. Part 1. The Daughter of Stillness. In a distant corner of the world, cradled between wild forests and lakes that mirror the sky, lay the kingdom of Stillwater. The realm was quiet, unassuming, and known not for wars or wealth, but for wisdom. People here spoke softly, moved with grace, and believed in something ancient, that stillness births clarity. At the heart of this kingdom stood a pale citadel carved from ivory stone. Vines trailed down its towers like poetry grown wild, and birds often nested in its crevices, unbothered by guards or gold. In this place lived Princess Alira, the only daughter of Queen Elandra and the late King Caelum. Alira was born during a storm that turned the lake waters to silver foam. The midwives whispered, "It is a sign, a child of sky and water." But the queen, holding her in arms, only whispered, "You will not be owned by thrones of storm, my daughter." Alira grew up between books and trees. Her royal tutors tried to raise her as tradition demanded: etiquette, embroidery, political alliances. But she asked questions that made the ministers uneasy. Why must a crown be heavier for a girl? Why must marriage come before mastery? Why is a prince seen as a rescue, not a rhythm? At 17, Alira began walking the kingdom alone, disguised as a commoner. She listened to healers in herbal markets, carpenters speaking to wood like old friends, mothers and midwives who told stories of loss and life in soft, steady tones. She did not crave escape, she sought understanding. One evening, as dusk painted the lake lavender, Queen Elandra called her to the high chamber. "The council has made its vote. You are to choose a consort by the next equinox. Stillwater must see a future secured." Alira bowed her head, not in defeat, but in thought. "Mother, I will answer them, not with haste, and not with a lie." That night she wrote a letter, not to a prince, but to the council. And that was the letter of defiance. I, Princess Alira of Stillwater, will not choose a consort out of obligation. A kingdom built on fear of lineage is already crumbling. I will build a future not on borrowed names or symbols of alliance, but on the living roots of our people, the strength of my mind and clarity of stillness. A prince may walk beside me, but he will not lead me. A crown will rest on my head and not weigh my will down. And if my life remains shared with none but my people, Stillwater shall not grieve but grow. It sent ripples across the court. Some old nobles huffed and claimed she had been bewitched by solitude. Others, the younger scribes and soldiers, silently folded the letter into their hearts. Then came the season of choosing. Though no formal suitors were invited, princes came anyway. From lands of fire and frost they arrived, with war horses, poems, fleets of silk, and jeweled gifts. They bowed and offered marriage, and Alira listened, but she made them work. To one she said, "Meet me in the market. We shall sell bread and hear what hunger says." To another, "Come to the orphanage. Let us ask the children what they seek in a leader." Many left, red-faced, unable to comprehend her world. But one lingered. He was not a prince of any realm, just a healer's son named Cael from a neighboring province. He had followed her from a village where she once spent a summer learning about herbs and grief. Cael did not bring gems. He brought a story of when he held the hand of a dying father who wasn't his own, and how silence taught him more than any scroll could. They spoke not of marriage, but of meaning. "You don't need me," Cael said gently one evening, "and that is why I would walk beside you, if you ever asked." Alira smiled a quiet, world-changing smile. Need is not love. Want, when born of choice, is. Then the queen decides that her daughter will not fall prey to the world. The queen's decision was as follows. Queen Elandra watched her daughter with pride and sorrow. She said to her, "I spent my reign preparing you for marriage," she confessed. "But now I see I should have prepared the world for your freedom." She stood before the court days later and announced, "There is no union. Princess Alira will ascend when she is ready, alone or with a companion she freely chooses. Stillwater shall not break tradition. It will redefine it." And so it did. A new kind of throne. The next years saw Stillwater transform. Alira studied governance, economics, agriculture. She restructured the royal lands, introduced councils made of tradespeople and teachers, and abolished dowries and law. She created the House of Questions, a hall where any citizen could enter and speak truth without punishment. A radical act in a kingdom where royalty was once revered in distance. She wore her crown rarely, not because she rejected it, but because she wanted people to see her face before they saw her title. And though Cael remained beside her, helping with health reforms and rural clinics, they did not marry. Not because they did not love, but because their bond needed no ceremony to validate its strength. "He is not my owner," she once told a foreign queen. "He is the calm that walks beside my fire. The year of descent and breaking of borders. Stillwater flourished under Alira's vision. Markets buzzed with life. Apprenticeships became open to women, and the kingdom's literacy rates soared. But change, even gentle, always stirs discomfort. And beyond Stillwater's borders, not every neighbor looked on with admiration. Whispers from the west. The kingdom of Brelan, a militaristic land west of Stillwater, viewed Alira's reforms as a threat cloaked in poetry. Their king, Darnik IV, was a man of conquest. He saw a young unmarried woman on the throne not as a sovereign, but as an opportunity. Stillwater is ripe, he told his court. Its queen speaks softly, but softness is silence, and silence means surrender. His ministers warned of the opposite, that Stillwater's people were fiercely loyal and that Alira's stillness was not weakness, but wisdom. Darnik smirked and told, "Then we will test her stillness with fire." The smoke before the fire. Stillwater's border villages began reporting missing scouts and poisoned wells. Trade caravans were blocked. Birds sent with messages never returned. Signs of war, slow and deliberate, crept like sickness through the trees. In her council chamber, Alira stood before her advisers, a map spread like a wound before her. "We will not strike first," she told, "but we will not bend either." Many urged her to wed Cael quickly, to present a united royal front, a symbol of power. But Cael refused, his voice quiet but steady. "You don't need me to protect your crown. You need to only remember why you wear it." Alira nodded. "Then we prepare not to conquer, but to defend, without forgetting who we are." The War of the Quiet Flame. When Brelan's army crossed the western border, Stillwater responded not with firestorms, but with strategy born of stillness. Alira refused to burn fields or sacrifice villagers for defense. Instead, she commissioned hidden shelters for the people and rerouted water sources to sustain them in siege. Forest strangers became informants. Healers worked beside archers. She wore no armor. She walked barefoot into the war camps, binding wounds and whispering, "We do not fight to win. We fight to remain whole." One night, when Brelan soldiers set fire to school, Alira stood before the ruins, eyes like embers. She issued her first and the only threat. "You have mistaken stillness for silence. But silence is where the wind gathers strength." That week, a storm struck the Brelan encampments, literal and metaphorical. Their soldiers, weary and poorly fed, began to desert. Many defected to Stillwater, drawn not by gold, but by stories of the queen who sat with the wounded. Darnik, furious, sent word demanding surrender. Alira replied with a single seed, a sprig of still root, a plant known for healing, but only if cultivated patiently. Her message: grow if you wish to last. Betrayal within. Victory was near, but within Stillwater a deeper betrayal brewed. One of Alira's own nobles, Lord Taewon orchestrated an internal plot. He believed the war had cost too much and that Alira's refusal to marry had weakened the throne. He said that he would make secret alliance with Braylon, promising to surrender the crown in exchange for rulership under Braylon's terms. The plan was to strike during the Feast of Return, when Alira would walk among the people of Stillwater unguarded, celebrating the end of the battle. But Cael had been watching. He found scrolls, secret messages, and maps with Braylon markings. The night before the feast, he confronted Taewon, not with a sword, but with evidence and witnesses. Alira listened. Her face remained unreadable. "Do you know why you failed?" she asked Taewon. "You thought Stillwater's strength lay in its armies, but it lies in its people, and they never chose you," she told. Taewon was tried in open court, not executed but exiled to the very land he tried to hand Stillwater to. Braylon refused him. He vanished, a man forgotten by both lands. The companion's choice. That winter, Cael approached Alira with a quiet question. "You have built peace from war and strength from silence. If you still want me by your side, not as a prince, but companion, I would walk with you." Alira took his hand and told, "Only if you promise to leave, if ever this love asks you to silence yourself." He smiled and told, "Then it never will." They did not marry. Instead, they stood in the Hall of Questions, in front of a crowd of villagers, and simply said, "We walk together. That is enough." An invitation refused. Foreign kingdoms sent letters inviting Alira to join alliances through royal marriages. One particularly audacious prince offered 50 ships and a diamond lake if she'd merge bloodlines. She replied, "I am not a bridge for men to walk across into power. I am a river. You may meet me where the current is kind, but I will not change my course to please your crown." Some laughed, others bowed in admiration. Stillwater reborn. In time, Stillwater became a model kingdom where children learned negotiation alongside arithmetic, and where love was celebrated in every form, not bound to roles of savior or sovereign. People no longer whispered princess. They spoke her name clearly, Alira, queen not of Stillwater, but of new ways. And Cael? He remained at her side, running the houses of healing, often reminding citizens, "You do not need permission to be whole." The Queen and the Quiet Revolution. As the embers of war cooled and the betrayers were cast out, Queen Alira turned her gaze not to glory, but to grounding. Her goal was never expansion, but evolution. And now, with peace hard won, the most radical phase of her reign began. Not in bloodshed, but in books, gardens, and voices, and in the undoing of the ancient chains. The new scrolls. The first step in her quiet revolution was rewriting the scrolls of instruction. Ancient laws penned centuries ago when women were considered property, when art was less valued than coin, and when questions were seen as dangers. She gathered philosophers, farmers, herbalists, carpenters, scribes, and even traveling performers, and each asked one question: if you could rebuild this land from scratch, what would you keep? What would you cast into the sea? Over 2 winters, the scroll of renewal was born. They decreed education would be a right, not a privilege. Craft and caregiving would be honored equal to governance. Leadership positions would rotate with citizens able to vote by voice and mark. No person of any gender, lineage, or belief could be owned, bought, or silenced. Marriage was a contract of companionship, not control, and optional for all. There was an uproar, of course. Some nobles fled, some citizens were fearful. But Elira simply said, fear is what powers uses to breed loyalty. But love, true, whole love, just asks for freedom, not obedience. The Circle Court. Traditionally, a throne sat above all. But now, Alira has replaced her court's structure with a circle, literally, a large round table beneath a skylight in the palace garden, where she sat among her people once every new moon. At this court, the citizens brought dreams and dilemmas. There were no guards, no petitions scrawled by scribes, just stories shared aloud. One day, a washerwoman asked for time to learn medicine. Another, a baker, confessed he was once a thief and asked how to make amends. Elira listened not to punish or praise, but to weave every thread into Stillwater's broader fabric. A school among the trees. Cael, now deeply rooted in Stillwater's people, transformed the old war towers into the school of soft knowing, a place where children and adults learned in circles among tree canopies and streams. There were no bells and no punishments. Lessons were simple, of course. They taught how to listen, how to grow food, how to speak one's truth and tend to wounds. And the most important of all was question even the stars. One child, when asked what a ruler should be, replied, someone who doesn't forget what it feels like to be small. And that was what Elira was giving their kingdom. Elira often visited the garden barefoot. She taught storytelling there to the kids. They all loved her. The prince who walked away. In the previous part, we know that there was a king who wanted to merge bloodlines with Stillwater, where he had told that he would offer 50 ships and a diamond lake for Alira's hand in marriage. In a gesture few understood, Alira sent a letter to the prince. He was Therin of East Ilaran, who had once offered to marry her for alliance. And she wrote a letter to him which read, you once offered me 50 ships for my hand in marriage. But would you offer your people the same wealth for their future? If not, then we are not companions. If yes, then come, not with a ring, but with a question. How do we build a world where no one kneels? Theron came not to court her, but to learn. He stayed months, sleeping in Weaver's house, and studying Stillwater's model. When he left, he bowed down, not to the throne, but to her courage, which took to build this model Stillwater kingdom. Then came the fire festival. Each year, on the night Braylin once was invaded, Stillwater held the festival of ash and bloom. It was not to celebrate war, but resilience. People wore black in the morning and white by dusk, symbolizing grief and growth. At the festival's heart burned a fire, into which citizens cast symbols of what no longer served them, things like prejudices, old fears, and shame. Then they danced around the circle. Sometimes even Alira would join, even in her aging years. She joined the circle barefoot, face painted with ash and pollen flower. Alira, even in her aging years, joined the final circle barefoot, face painted with ash and flower pollen. Cale watched from the edge, smiling. They don't remember how close this land came to ruin, a visiting scholar once said. For which Cale answered, they don't need to. They remember how close it came to healing, and that is enough. The companion's letter. One quiet spring, Cale grew ill. He never sought sympathy and never feared the end. He left a letter by Alira's writing desk, sealed with a leaf of stillroot, which said, my queen, you never needed a prince, and I never wish to be one either. You let me be a healer, a listener, and a witness to your becoming. That was enough. I go, not as a shadow behind you, but as a seed in the ground beneath. Keep walking softly. The world is listening. He passed with her hand in his. The queen grows old. Years passed. Alira's hair grayed. Her voice softened with age, but never lost clarity. She refused to build statues or name monuments after herself. When asked how she wished to be remembered, she said, as someone who left behind room for others to build, speak, and bloom. When her advisors suggested recording her biography, she replied, right of the kingdom, not the crown. The kingdom remembers better. And when the time came, as she lay in her chamber overlooking the gardens, she requested no parade, no burial mound. She asked to be returned to the roots of the oldest tree in Stillwater, where the school of soft knowing still whispered with children's voices.
The Garden Throne. The wind that rustled through Stillwater's oldest tree carried more than just leaves. It carried stories. And in time, even though Queen Elira had returned to the roots, her legacy grew, not taller, but deeper. Her absence, like her presence, became a quiet kind of guidance. The new leader, no throne, no crown. Elira named no heir. Instead, she left a parchment in the circle court with a single sentence. Let the garden choose. For one moon cycle, no ruler sat. Stillwater functioned as it had by community, memory, and intention. Then, during the harvest gathering, a child named Mira stood up. 10 winters old, with ink-stained fingers and a heart full of questions. She asked, "Why can't we all take turns leading, like turns in a story?" Silence fell, then laughter, then agreement. And so Stillwater created the Petal Circle, a council of 7 elected every 3 years, drawn from any walk of life: farmers, nurses, dreamers, storytellers. Mira, when she grew older, became one of its finest, youngest members, not because she sought power, because she once asked a good question. The garden grows. Without grand statues, the memory of Alira blossomed instead through practice. A library named the Listening House was built from reclaimed stones of the old palace. Schools taught legacy days, where children enacted moments from the kingdom's transformation. The tree of stillness, where Alira was buried beneath the roots, became a place of reflection, not worship. People came to sit, not to kneel. And Cael's writings were discovered years later. They were bound in a book called The Gentle Way, a guide not of commandments, but of compassionate choices. Stillwater slowly became known across the lands, not as a powerful kingdom, but as a wise one. Pilgrims, leaders, and skeptics came, some expecting dogma, others expecting wealth. Instead, they found gardens, open circles, and people who did not fear asking, "Why do we do things this way?" Letters from beyond. Decades after Alira's passing, a box was discovered beneath her writing desk. Inside were letters addressed to no one, written in her final years. Some read it like poems, some like prayers, some like simple observations. Here are a few. "I never wanted a prince. I wanted a partner who would not silence my storms, but sit with me through them. Power is not what you hold, but what you make room for in others. You're not selfish for choosing peace. You are brave." These letters were compiled into a book, Letters Beneath the Leaves. It became Stillwater's most read and most gifted text. Whispers Beyond Stillwater. The idea of companionship over ownership, of shared leadership, and of a life built on responsibility and gentleness began to ripple into nearby realms. In the north, a queen dissolved her own monarchy and became a physician. In the east, villages formed council based on Stillwater's petal circle. In the south, a royal family invited farmers and workers to share decisions about the land. No land copied Stillwater completely, but many began to wonder, and wondering was how every revolution in Stillwater had begun. Legacy beyond lineage. Elira had no children of blood, but she left thousands of heirs of spirit. The midwife who opened a sanctuary for mothers who'd lost children. The potter who painted her saying into bowls passed from hand to hand. The soldier who refused command. and instead planted peace gardens in former battlegrounds. Her gentleness became a blueprint, her responsibility a seed, her story signal to those tired of shouting and conquest. Final pages. The story she wrote. Before her passing, Lyra began a story she never finished. It was found scrawled in the margins of an old scroll, its ink slightly smudged by rain. Once upon a time, there was a girl who did not want to be rescued. She wanted to understand. She did not wear glass slippers. She walked barefoot through mud. She did not wait in a tower. She built homes for others. One day, someone asked her, "Don't you want a prince?" She smiled. "I want someone who sees me as the whole sky, not a star to possess. But even without him, I will still rise like the dawn, because my story does not begin with him, and it does not end with him either." The end. Or perhaps the beginning.
And so the tale finds its quiet end, like a candle gently dimming in a room that now glows with peace. Thank you, dear dreamer, for sharing this moment beneath the stars with me. May sleep cradle you softly, may your dreams be kind, and may you always find your way back to Lull and Lore. Until next time, rest well. Good night, dear dreamer.